Welcome, welcome. Hi, it's Iona at Wren House Studio. We are here for our second session of It's About Time to Create Progress Without Pressure as we emerge and see. And so we're reminding ourselves that what we're doing here is we're allowing a more natural circadian feminine rhythm to come into our consciousness. And once it's in our mind, it filters down into our heart. And once we have natural circadian feminine time filtering down into our heart, it doesn't mean it's going to stay there all the time. We have to be kind of tapped in and tuned in. And so here in Emerge and See, we're taking the 9 weeks of the spring quarter to allow ourselves to connect with some creative prompts. And each week we get a creative prompt on Wednesday here in the video. And then on the following evening, Thursday evening, we integrate the information that we received in the video. And it is an interactive program, that being that the more that we connect with the information, not because I'm bringing it, but because it's natural, it's circadian, and it's feminine rhythm that we're looking at. And the more that we connect with it, the stronger that muscle becomes. And we just begin to actually make space. So we're looking at, as we step into the spring quadrant, we look at this natural time of the year every year, but no 2 years are the same. But we look at this natural time of the year to spiral into a sense of expansion, spaciousness, midwifing ourselves into this new opportunity to be our doing. And so, right there, rather than do, I'm not doing enough, we consider that we're starting this new natural year with the idea that I am enough, I have enough, I do enough, and I can be me. So we've invested the last 6 months in looking at how to be more grounded, be more rooted, be more connected to the gold mine of ideas and inspirations and ways in which we can engage self-expression. For 6 months we've been exercising that muscle. So now we have this sense of, I can be me. And we're anchoring into that as we begin our new walk around the natural calendar year that starts at spring equinox and goes all the way around 1 quarter at a time, equinox to solstice, solstice to equinox, equinox to solstice, and back around from solstice to the next equinox in next spring. So there's something really absolutely fantastic about this state of consciousness because it opens up this quality of largesse. It expands us into this sense of nobility, of being the best me that I can be, recognizing that I'm all the me's that I've ever been throughout time. We make believe that we can create these great wonders through our life, through all the possibilities available to us. So today in our second session of Emerge and See, we want to address a couple of things. The first is that when we look at our covenant, right now, I'm going to grab it out here. When we look at our covenant, we want to print this out and we want to have it inside of what we're going to be addressing next, which is our sketchbook workbook. We want to have this available. It maps out the 8 46-day segments of the full year. And as we step into Emerge and See, we want that awareness, but we don't need to gobble it all up. We can sit at our leisure and we can track our way through, and we can actually look from the east gate over to the west gate, and we can say, where would I like to be in 6 months? Now that's manageable. We can even say, where would I like to be by one of these midpoints where we say midpoint, midpoint, midpoint. We could take any one of the midpoints and sense into, well, when is that taking place? Our current midpoint will be the first day of May. We are then halfway through the time of the first quarter from spring equinox over to summer solstice. We're 46 days in at May 1st. That gives us a milestone. By May 1st, we might, there's no pressure, it's progress without pressure, but we might have a sense of what we've asked to have some clarity around. Remember, when we begin a new natural walk, we begin with a dream from the mystery quadrant of winter that comes into the spring and begins to open up like a flower blossom into a vision. We can't see the flower blossom before it opens, but we can see the bud, and we know there's a whole lot going on in there. It's called estivation. It's a prefloration mandala that is unseen. We can't see it. All we can see is the indication, the bud of the flower that's going to open. As long as a squirrel doesn't come and eat it, or a bird pick it and drop it to the ground while it's getting twigs for its nest, that bud is going to open and it's going to go into its full flowering. So in our first quadrant and in the first half of it, from spring equinox over to the first cross quarter day, May 1st, we're really leaning in and kind of cozying up and getting a feeling for, well, what was my dream during the mystery of the winter quadrant? And how am I midwifing it with some clarity into the idea that, yeah, this is my vision for this year. Again, no pressure, no hurry. This is not about rushing to get something done. We're just starting out to be more me and connecting more with the idea of working from home. So when we look at our covenant, we're looking primarily right now at these 3 points here, the east gate, the midpoint, and the south gate of summer. That's where we're heading. We're heading to the south gate of summer. So we do want to be aware of these first 3 points in our 8-point covenant, because it allows us to gain more clarity. It allows us to gain more a sense of how I am currently being me, working from home. And even if we just do this, remember, only for 15 minutes a day, we're going to accomplish a tremendous amount over the course of the first quadrant of the new natural circadian feminine year. I want to also talk today about the idea of being lost. I love so much, thank you, when you bring something in to our work, we can dig into it and we can get more curious about it. And so I thank Lynn so much for bringing into our Facebook thread the idea of having been lost recently. And I want to applaud that. I really, really want to encourage us to get lost, to be lost, to get comfortable with not knowing the who, the how, the when, the where, the what. We just don't know those things at the beginning of a new natural circadian feminine year. We might have an inkling. We might be spiraling onto something that we've been impassioned around for years. And so that spark of ignition that happens here at the Aries cycle, it might be engaged for you. It might be engaged for me. But it also might be like when we go to start a propane heater. I've got a propane heater in my studio at the farm. And when I get there, I have to connect the hoses to the main tank outside. I have to bring that hose through the wall and down onto the floor. Then I have to go in and I have to hook it up to the heater for my studio. And then I have to go back out and I have to turn on the valve to allow the gas to begin to fill the hose. And I have to wait a while for that gas to get into the hose. And then I have to go in and I have to do something that I have to ignite, get the spark started for the pilot light on my heater. And it takes once and twice and 15 times usually, 12 to 15 times before I even see the first indication of a flame, because I'm priming it, I'm priming it, I'm priming it. So see if that can work for you. If you do not feel currently that you have a sense of direction or clarity around your vision, leave it alone. Just engage the prompts and see where they take you. So our prompt for this week, in addition to really connecting with the covenant, putting the covenant into your sketchbook workbook, and putting your fingers on the pulse points of what those first 3 positions represent to you as you engage them in the covenant. There's one thing I also want to say about our covenant, and that is that at the end there is a clause around confidentiality. I think this is very, very useful for us to consider when we're working in an intimate circle of compassion in action, as we are here in the It's About Time to Create Progress Without Pressure programs. Confidentiality. In other words, keep this work to yourself. Don't talk about it. Write about it in your journal. Share with us what you choose to in the Facebook. Email me if you have questions, comments, concerns, or confusions. Don't ever feel like you have to put yourself out there if you don't choose to. This is your work. I'm simply bringing it to you in the form that I am, and you are listening to it through your heart and through your mind and also through your intuitive gut, so that you're going to pull out the things that work for you and you're actually going to expand on those things. So what I want to talk about after the confidentiality and the 3 clauses that start us out on the covenant is I want to talk about being lost. There's a show a few years ago called Lost, and millions and millions and millions of us watched it every week, and it was filmed in this amazing place in Hawaii where Sunny and Emma live, and you just got to see these extraordinary landscapes and all of this mystical stuff that was going on, and you never knew what was going to happen from week to week. You know, bizarreness was just part and parcel of being connected to the storyline of the program called Lost. Well, this week I'd like you to consider how exciting it is to get lost, to not know where you are, to not know the who, the how, the when, the where, the what, to just not have to consider that from time to time. Maybe for 15 minutes a day for the next week, you allow yourself to immerse yourself in the idea of, I'm lost, I don't know where I am. One of my favorite poems that I think I might have shared in one of our earlier programs, but it's so worth reminding ourselves of in Emerge and See. Emerge and See is about taking action, getting engaged, going out there and being whatever we're going to be doing. So it's really, really exciting to feel lost at the beginning and go, gosh, I don't know where I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to look at the world. I don't know how to look at myself. I really need some help. And when we ask for help, the help comes through all the yous that you've ever been throughout time. And we remind ourselves that there's a pendulum that swings back into time and swings forward into the future. And so when we say all the yous that you've ever been throughout time, there's these BEMEs that we've been, and there are these BEMEs that we will come into being. So being lost is like just hanging. I'm just going to, if a child is told when they're little, if you get lost, just stay put. We'll find you. Don't try and find your way out of the dark, deep forest. Just sit tight. We will find you. We'll give the dogs a t-shirt. The dogs will sniff the t-shirt. They'll know what your body odor is, and they will track you, and we'll find you in the woods. So this week I'd like to invite you, as a first creative prompt, is to stay put. Don't feel like you have to get anywhere. And our second creative prompt is to engage your journal. I'm going to share a few of them here. You can get something like a composition notebook for $1 at the dollar store and use that as your Emerge and See workbook. And you can make a creative cover for it, front and back, and just use it for all of your notes and for your diagrams and for the ways in which you choose to engage. You can also go much more high-end, and you could get something like journals like this that I've used for many years. I buy them by the case, 12 in a case, and it gives me an opportunity to just have room for everything that I am exploring and discovering at any given time in my life with my emerge and see work. You can also get something like just a regular sketchbook, spiral bound, which is really what I often recommend for all of my courses, is something simple like this, a sketchbook. You can do your cover, and you can put your covenant right inside, and then begin to use it for all of your notes and all of the exercises that we'll be continuing to do. I want to recommend a book on the topic of being lost, and that is A Field Guide to Being Lost by Rebecca Solnit. I believe her name is Solnit. A Field Guide to Being Lost, or Getting Lost. I think it's Being Lost. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. I will often go into my Kindle and reread it because she's an art historian, and she talks about the creative process, and she brings in beautiful visual imagery. It's just alive reading. And so if you're wanting to really embrace the expansiveness of life, there's nothing like being lost, because it's such a big world, and where am I going to go next, and what am I going to do now? So we want to really immerse ourselves this week into the idea of being lost for just this period of time, as we're getting more and more intimate with being me. Being lost is sort of like being on a vision quest. When we're on a vision quest, we're just with ourselves. We have our back against a tree or a big old rock, and we're staying there, not moving away from a 100-foot circle for many, many days. And it feels very uncomfortable. And a vision is like that when we're first starting out at the start of a new natural year. It's not necessarily comfortable, and that's good news. This is Iona. This is Wren House Studio. It's about time to create progress without pressure as we, week by week, emerge and see. And we continue right now in looking for clarity around what is my dream, back in the mystery quadrant, what am I bringing into the me quadrant, what am I being as I am being more and more me, and what if I feel lost? Why don't I just sit quietly? Why don't I do an imagination meditation about where I can imagine myself moving from here? What would be my next step? I look forward to seeing you on the call. I look forward to seeing you on our Facebook thread. And I look forward to hearing from you regarding how you're feeling about the idea of being lost. Not necessarily getting lost, but being lost. Being lost with the me. It might be the most beautiful experience you could probably ever imagine, because you're not alone. See you soon.